Welcome to myQuote, the new SME online pricing and contracting portal from Corona Energy. Over the course of this video demonstration, we'll be showing you how to use this online tool to obtain the latest market rates for your customers, as well as generating contract paperwork easily and effortlessly. With that said, let's get started. Once you've logged in with your username and password, you'll be taken straight to the myQuote dashboard. You'll first be presented with the two main options, GetQuote and myQuote. You will also see these listed on the left-hand side of the screen, as well as a third option called All Quotes. We're going to come to myQuote and All Quotes a little bit later on in the tutorial, but for now, let's start with GetQuote. As the name implies, this will enable us to quote a price for our customer. You'll be taken through to step 1 of a very short and simple 6-step process. You'll first be asked for your preferred type of quote, whether that be a single quote or a multiple quote. The multiple quote option is currently in development, and at a later stage you'll be able to quote multiple meters for a single customer. For now, you can use the single quote option to price for a single electricity or a single gas meter, either separately or together on a dual fuel contract. We now move on to step 2, which will ask for the supply address details. Now, this will not relate to the registered business address or the invoice address. Instead, this will relate to the physical location of the meter that you are trying to price for. If you start entering the first line of the address in the search field here, you'll see that any recognized entries, depending on what you're typing, will start to be returned. Once you find and select the relevant address option, you'll see that the address fields below automatically populate. You may have a newly developed site where the address is not yet recognized. To manually enter this information, you can select the Cannot Find My Address option, and from here you'll be able to edit the address fields yourself. For example, we can change address line 1 from 123 to 345 London Road. Once you are happy with all of your supply address details, you can select Continue to move on to step 3. On step 3, you'll be asked to choose a quote type. You can choose one of 3 options: a single gas meter for a gas quote, a single electricity meter for an electricity quote, or 1 meter for each commodity on a dual fuel quote. We'll have a look at what follows each option, starting with the gas quote. Here we are asked for the annual consumption measured in kilowatt hours, and we are also asked for our preferred contract length. If we return and choose the electricity only quote, we will be asked for the MPAN details for a non-half-hourly meter. This will include the top line, so that's the profile class, the meter time switch code and the line loss factor, as well as the 13-digit MPAN core. Again, we will be asked for our preferred contract length. If we go back once more to the previous screen and select the dual fuel option, we will be asked for the information we have seen already, but for both meter types on the one screen. For the purpose of this demonstration, we will continue using the dual fuel quote. For the gas AQ, you will need to enter the yearly consumption in kilowatt hours up to a maximum of 732,000 kilowatt hours per annum. We will use 85,000 kilowatt hours for this example. We will also need to add the MPAN details for our non-half-hourly meter. So we will enter the full top line value, followed by the 13-digit MPAN core. We will then be able to select a preferred contract length ranging from 1 year up to a maximum of 5 years, although this is subject to credit approval. We'll select the 3-year duration for now, and then continue by selecting Generate Quote. This will bring up a Rubik's Cube animation while it calculates the prices. Once the calculations are complete, we will be taken through to the next step. On step 5, we are able to select the product options we wish to build into the contract. At the top of the screen, we have 2 tabs for the gas and electricity options. We're going to look at both of these separately, starting with the gas. Under the gas tab, you will see 3 tick boxes at the top of the screen, one for green gas, one for AMR, and one for an all-inclusive rate. The green gas option will build 100% renewable energy into the contract for a slightly higher premium. If we tick that option, we'll see that the unit rate increases a little bit to accommodate that, and the product description is also updated to show that green energy is included in the contract. If you change your mind and don't wish to contract for green energy, just untick the box and the unit rate will revert back to what it was originally. We also have AMR, which is our automatic meter reader. This is a fantastic tool available to all of Corona Energy's customers that will ensure accurate meter readings and invoicing, as well as detailing interval consumption data. To include AMR in your contract, just tick the box and you'll see that the description updates to include the product. The standing charge has also increased slightly to accommodate for the AMR cost, and again, you can untick the box if you do not want to include the product in the contract. As AMR is so beneficial, I'm going to leave it in for this quote. We also have an all-inclusive rate option available for Corona Energy gas contracts. This increases the unit rate somewhat, however this is offset against the daily standing charge, which is removed entirely. This option may be relevant to meters that are used sporadically, such as car park lighting. However, this may or may not apply to your customers' needs. When contracting for a meter with more consistent use, just untick the product option and the price will revert back to show a daily standing charge amount as well as the lower unit rate. We will also need to select a product pricing type. This can be standard or fully fixed. The fully fixed pricing type will also include the cost of any transportation or common third-party charges which are otherwise passed through to the customer annually on the standard contract. The customer is free to choose either option. However, as we are going for a 3-year duration in this example, I'm going to select the fully fixed option to ensure that the common third-party charges are included in the rate. Just beneath the product types, we will also be asked for our commission to be applied to the gas contract. SME Online can accept commission requests up to a maximum of 3 pence per kilowatt hour, and this will be built into the unit rate. For any commission requests to be built into the standing charge, please contact our bespoke pricing team directly. For this example, we will add our commission at 0.5 pence per kilowatt hour, and you'll see as we enter this that the original unit rate is amended to include this commission. Commission can be requested on the unit rate up to 4 decimal places, although for this example we'll keep this at 1 decimal place. When we have finished entering the product options for the gas contract, we can then move on to the electricity tab. The first thing you will notice is that we only have one product option for electricity, which is for renewable energy. This will work the same way as it did on the gas contract. Just tick the box if you want to use the green energy product and leave it unticked if you do not want these prices. The AMR product option is absent as AMR is already built into the prices for our electricity contracts in SME Online. The all-inclusive option, which was available for our gas contract, cannot be used for electricity as the standing charge is priced monthly as opposed to daily. Again, we will need to select a product pricing type, either standard or fully fixed. This can differ from what you selected for the gas contract. However, as we are pricing for a longer duration, we will keep this at fully fixed. As we did so earlier with our gas contract, we can enter the commission to be applied to the unit rate. This can be a different amount than what was applied to the gas contract if required. Check over your selections once more, and once you are ready to move on, select Overview, and this will take you to the 6th and final step of the quoting process. On step 6, we are given a breakdown of the rates and standing charges, the third-party costs that are included in the quote, and any additional services that are offered. As well as the AMR product, we also offer the My Energy and My Corona portals, which will allow you to manage your customer portfolios online. This includes their invoices, meter reads and consumption data, and any contract or meter related queries. All quotes submitted through myQuote are subject to direct debit 10-day payment terms. Prices shown are exclusive of the climate change levy and VAT. As mentioned earlier, prices shown are also subject to credit approval, as well as to accepting our terms and conditions that are provided with the contract. At the bottom of the screen, there are 2 fields to complete, the first of which being your contract reference number. This is for your own internal referencing, so if you use a numbering system, traditional text, or date labeling, you can add your label here. We also need to enter the contract business name. If you are working with a limited company, this will need to be as it appears on the company's house register verbatim with accurate spelling and punctuation. Likewise, if you're contracting for a registered charity, you will need to enter the details as they appear on the charity register. And if you are working with a sole trader, you will need to type in the customer's full name, trading as their business name. In this example, we're going to use the sole trader business Amy Courtney, trading as SME Online myQuote. From here, you'll have two options. The lower right button will allow you to accept the quote as it is and move on to the contracting stage. However, usually at this point, you may want to have a conversation with your customer to ensure that they are happy with the pricing and also with the product selections before entering into contract. If that is the case, you'll want to select Save Quote, where we will be taken back to the main dashboard and deferred to the section called My Quote. The My Quote section will list a summary of all of the contracts that you, as an individual, have quoted to date. At the top of the list is the most recent quote that was worked on, with a summary of the rates and product options. Below this, you will see the history of all quotes you have generated previously, as well as their current status. The All Quotes option on the right side of the screen will also list similar information. However, this will give the details for quotes generated by all SME online users within your brokerage. This is particularly useful for department managers who may need to reallocate work in the event of sickness or absence, or otherwise get an idea of group performance. Let's look back at the quote that we were just working on. Under the Actions column, there is the option to progress the quote, and if we select that, we will be given 3 further options where we can reject the quote, accept the quote, or adjust the quote. After speaking with your customer, you may find that they do not wish to proceed with the contract at this stage. Whatever the reason, you can reject the quote by selecting the first option, and from there, a pop-up box will appear to enable you to give your feedback to Corona Energy. If the customer is interested in the quote, but the prices are slightly off target, you can select the Adjust Quote option to amend your commission to bring the overall rates down slightly. You can also add or remove any product options if necessary. Once you are happy with the changes that you've made, select Overview, and you'll be taken back to step 6, which will give you a final summary of the contract criteria that you've entered. If you need to go back to the customer again for further discussion, select the Save Quote option to be taken back to the My Quote screen. Otherwise, if you and your customer are happy to proceed to the contracting stage, select Accept Quote. We are then directed to the contracting section of myQuote, which will allow us to generate the contract paperwork. The first thing we will be asked for are the contact details of the individual who will authorize the contract. This may be an office manager, finance director, or the owner of the business. Enter the first and last name as prompted, and be sure to provide a valid email address for the customer. Ensure that this is spelled accurately, as this will be needed a little later on. Once the contact telephone details are added, we will then move on to the company details section. If you entered the customer's business name on the previous screen, the details will automatically populate. This is a key point in the contract's credit check, so take this final opportunity to make any amendments to the business name, correcting any spelling mistakes or punctuation errors. If you are contracting for a sole trader, ensure that you use their full name as they appear on the electoral roll. Looking at the company address, if we select the drop-down, we are given 2 options. The first option will give us the supply address details we gave earlier in step 2 of Get Quote. If the registered company address differs from the supply address details, we can enter this manually by selecting Add Company Address from the drop-down and add the details in the fields below. We will then be asked to select the business entity. When working with a limited company, choose Company including LLP and PLC, and you'll be asked for the company registration number. If you're working with a charity, you will need to give the charity registration number, and if you are creating a contract for a partnership or a sole trader, you will be asked for the trader details. If the sole trader details are the same as the contact details we entered at the top of the screen, you can tick the Copy Information box and the information will populate in the fields below. These can also be entered manually if required. You will also be asked for the trader's residential address as it appears on the electoral roll, and also for the trader's date of birth. While you can type this in the date, month, year format, you can also select the date from the calendar pop-up that appears. Under the meter details, you'll see that the electricity MPAN top line and MPAN core has been populated. However, we now need to provide the estimated annual consumption for our electricity meter. When using myQuote, this consumption can be any value up to 400,000 kilowatt hours per annum. We will give this as 52,000 kilowatt hours for this contract. Moving over to the right, the gas AQ we provided earlier on step 4 is listed. However, we now need to enter the meter point reference number before we can generate a contract. The final contract details to consider are the preferred supply start dates for each commodity. The start date will default to ASAP, and underneath this you will see a greyed out date which indicates the soonest point Corona Energy can take over the supply. We can also use the drop down to select a specific date and can enter this manually or use the calendar pop-up. myQuote is valid for contracts that will start any time over the next 12 months from the present day. We'll have both the electricity and gas meter contracts in this example start on the 1st of January 2018. At the bottom of the page, we'll be asked to confirm that all of the above information is correct and be warned that any incorrect information supplied may delay the start date or lead to termination of the contract. This is the final prompt to ensure that all of the information we entered is correct, so when we are ready, just tick this box and select Continue. We are now asked to provide a letter of authority for our customer. The LOA should ideally be signed within the last 12 months and be no older than 2 years. LOA submitted on myQuote will need to be in the PDF format, so if your file is in any other format such as Word document or JPEG, you'll need to convert this to PDF first. By clicking the Browse button, we will be able to navigate to the LOA file and upload it. Once the LOA is successfully uploaded, we are again taken back to the myQuote screen, where our contract status has updated to LOA attached. From here, we can now arrange for the contract to be signed. Under the Actions column, select Sign Contract. If your LOA allows you to sign the contract on behalf of your customer, you may select the first option. However, if you do not have authorization, or your customer would prefer to review and sign the contract themselves, you can choose to Send to Customer for signing, where the paperwork will be sent to the email address that was provided with the main contact details earlier. Once this is selected, the contract status will update to Awaiting Customer Signature. The customer will receive an email similar to this one, although the sender details will show your brokerage rather than the test environment we are using for this demonstration. The customer will be made aware that myQuote has sent them a document to review and sign, which they can do by selecting the Review Documents option. From here, they'll be taken to DocuSign, which will allow them to digitally sign the contract. The customer will be encouraged to read the electronic record and signature disclosure, and once they've read the terms, they can just tick the box to agree and then select Continue. So we now have the contract paperwork pack with the information that we used earlier generated on the forms. At this point, the customer will want to take time and review the product options that were selected on page 1, ensuring that their business details are correct. On page 2, they will need to check the meter details are correct and confirm that they are happy to sign to the rates listed on the contract. The tariff code that is generated here will refer to the current version of the price book that the contract was priced against. Once the customer is happy with all of the contract terms, they will now be in a position to sign the contract. If the customer wants to sign this in the traditional pen-to-paper manner, they can do so by clicking Other Actions in the top right of the screen and choose to print and sign the contract manually. They may also send the contract to someone else for signing, or decline to sign if they do not want to commit the contract. The customer can sign the contract digitally by clicking the Sign icon in the signature field. You'll see that the customer's full name and initials have been populated from the contact details that were given earlier, although these can be amended if necessary. A predetermined font style is allocated to the signature. However, if aesthetics matter to your customer, they'll be able to select a style that will allow them to choose other fonts and signature styles. If your customer has a specific signature that they would like to use, they can select the Draw tab And from here, they can use their computer mouse to draw and create their own personal signature. Once the customer is happy with their signature, they can select Adopt and Sign. The contract will automatically take you to the next applicable field for signing. However, if we scroll back up here, we can see that our very unique signature has been populated, and underneath we have a digital thumbprint that will contain a record of the email and IP addresses used to sign this contract digitally. So now that we've signed the electricity contract, let's look at the gas supply. Again, the customer will need to check the business details and product options on page 1, as well as the meter information and rates listed on page 2. Once the customer is happy with all of the terms, again select the sign icon, and the personalized signature we used before will also be applied here. As well as signing the contract paperwork, the customer will also need to sign a direct debit mandate. If you're contracting for dual fuel, you'll have 2 direct debit forms to fill, one for gas and one for electricity. If you're contracting for a single commodity, the customer will only need to sign 1 direct debit form. Do ensure that both mandates are completed if you are contracting for dual fuel. On the direct debit mandate, the customer will be required to give the name of the account holder, as well as the correct account number and branch sort code. They will then need to give the bank address details, and finally, sign the direct debit mandate. Once the customer has signed all relevant documents, they can click the Finish button. They'll be prompted to sign up for a free DocuSign account. The customer can explore this if they want to manage all of their documents digitally, or otherwise they can decline. The customer will be redirected to the Corona Energy website, which will indicate that the contract was submitted successfully. Let's refer back to myQuote. We'll see now that the status for this particular quote has been updated to read Contract signed by customer. The contract is now with Corona Energy for validating and processing. The contract status will be regularly updated with any response or action taken by Corona Energy. However, you will also be notified of any changes or updates by email. This will include the outcome of any credit check, if additional information is required, and if the contract is ultimately rejected or committed. If you have additional contracts that you would like to price for, all you need to do is go back to the dashboard and select Get Quote so you can begin the process again with a new customer. That completes our video demonstration. We thank you for your interest in the myQuote portal and hope that you enjoyed the tutorial. For any further questions or feedback, please do not hesitate to contact our dedicated Pricebook team at sme.pricebook@coronaenergy.co.uk. myQuote is now live and is used by many of our broker partners, so get in touch now to be set up with account details today.